Hello again, pretty people. You're watching Broken Dolly TV with me, Gypsy, as usual. And we're going to start some lovely faces again together. Before we get into the face sculpts though, I do want to acknowledge that I do have an Instagram. A lot of you guys are asking what my Instagram is or how to get in touch with me over there. Or have actually sent me messages over there and I haven't responded to you. That's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I haven't been active on Instagram for so long that I think my phone just like kicked me out of the account. It logged me out. I'm very bad with passwords, so I can't remember what my password is. I've tried every combination I can think of. And so I don't know what the problem is, but I need to figure that out. You know how when you're like trying to verify that it's you, sometimes it'll ask you if it can text you at a phone number, but the problem is that I moved to a different state, so my phone number changed. The app doesn't want to verify with any other phone numbers except the old one that I used to have, which I have no access to. So there's that problem. Now, many of you know that I am autistic, but what a lot of you don't know is that I also have ADHD. So the combination of my ADHD and my autistic hyperfocus trying to like work together clashes a lot. It's difficult for me to try to multitask beyond a certain degree. In the back of my head, like trying to log into my Instagram is on my list of things I need to focus on doing, but at the moment it's not high on my priority. I have a whole bunch of other stuff that I have to do that's more important than that I need to troubleshoot. So I kind of put it on the back burner for right now. So when I do figure out how to get myself back into my account, I'll be sure to mention it here and in my future videos. I mean, y'all can go and follow me there. It's at Broken Dolly TV, same as my YouTube channel here. I can't communicate with you guys and I don't have any new posts up there because I have to access my account in order to be able to post, you know? I just wanted to get that out of the way so that those of you guys who are wondering, I'll probably mention this again in another video until I have everything straightened out over there. But yeah, I do have an Instagram just locked out, okay? I don't know if you guys been paying attention to anybody that's behind me, but there's a batch of dolls that we're going to be going over in this video today. And for this one, I wanted to focus more on faces that are not very commonly seen in Dollyverse. They're dolls that are a little bit more obscure or they're very new, so we don't have lots of dolls with their face sculpts. So I wanted to focus more on those faces because we don't really get to see them too often. And Bailey is like, everybody's got at least one in their collection. The Millie sculpt, who doesn't have a Millie sculpt? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you honestly don't have a Millie. Come on, stop lying. You know, the regular Ken sculpt, everybody's got those. So I wanted to kind of focus on faces that maybe you should be on the lookout for, that you might want to add to your collection, or just faces you don't get to see all the time, and this might be your way of vicariously getting to see a certain face up close. So we're gonna jump over to the Dolly station and take a look at each one. I would so appreciate if you would subscribe, help me get to 15,000 subscribers over here. We're almost there, and I can't do that unless the pretty people who are watching help by subscribing and letting us know there are more of us out here. So I promised one of my pretty people in the comments that I would take a closer look at this guy right here. I call him Douglas after my daddy. His sculpt at this time doesn't really have a name. So the official code for his head is GRB87. That's all we got right now. But my viewer was pointing out that they thought that this was a Tate sculpt, and I admit he does look very much like Tate, but I'm going to show you, as I promised, him next to Tate so we can get a better look at the differences in the sculpt. Now, I did go over Tate's features in a previous video if you want to learn more about his sculpt and the different dolls that have this sculpt. But as you can see here, it's a little bit hard to tell because I drew on facial hair on Douglas. Immediately, you can tell that they have different shaped noses. The nose on Douglas's face is a little bit wider at the base, but I'm not gonna lie, the shape is so similar. Like, they really do look alike. If you said they were cousins, I would believe it. If you're looking for sculpts that you can turn into like brothers or family members, I think that these two would definitely be good choices. I mean, it doesn't matter that they're not in the same skin tone because I'm speaking for myself here. I'm mixed and I have family members on either side of my parents' families that don't look anything like me skin tone wise, but you can see the similarities in our facial features that we do share, and it's kind of freaky. So The skin tone doesn't matter. Okay, just real quick, because I have bad lighting in here, I wanted to turn on the flash so you guys can get a better look at how similar their lips look from the side. And they both have that protruding chin. Automatically, I can see why somebody might get these two sculpts mixed up for sure. But the key components of what you want in your Tate sculpt is missing from Douglas's face. Tate has very, very distinct dimples on the sides of his face. I mean, they're huge dimples and they are molded right into the actual vinyl. It's not drawn on. That's what we're missing from this other face sculpt. That is a dead giveaway that it would have been probably a Tate. So like I said, if you don't see the dimples and you don't see the big chin, then it might not be a Tate. You can't have one without the other for a Tate sculpt. Yeah, he doesn't have those dimples. They're not hiding underneath his beard. There's nothing there. And you can tell that even though from the side their lip shape is very similar, from the front they're quite different. Douglas has a wider lip compared to Tate, who does have nice plump lips as well, but they're not as wide, they're not as long across his face. So I hope you guys can see all those little differences in how they look to get a better idea of how to tell these guys apart. I'm just gonna call him fake Tate as far as the sculpt is concerned, but yeah, we don't have any other dolls that have this fake Tate sculpt. He was used first for the 2021 Fashionistas 162, and that's whose head this is, but he's not on his original body. Let's take the flash off. So the body that he is on actually belongs to a Fresh Dolls. It's a similar skin tone. I don't think that it's 100% the same. I think his head is slightly lighter, but it's just close enough that he can get away with it and it's not gonna be like such a noticeable difference that it's distracting. Yeah, there is no skin tone match for him right now that has articulation in the body. It's unfortunate, but it's true, and I highly suggest that you go and take a look at Barbie's GBF channel, which is run by my homeboy Ethan. He has Frankensteined some of his dolls that have fashionistas bodies that don't have matching bodies, and he basically like made his own articulated bodies for some of his dolls. If you need some ideas, if you're crafty, if you're hands-on kind of person, I would say go check out some of his videos where he's showing you his custom dolls and he'll explain to you what he did. I don't think he has an actual like tutorial, but if you're already a crafty person, like you can kind of tell listening to how he's explaining what he did, you can get an idea of how it should work. I highly suggest you go over there and check that out if you're just dying for a body. Who has time to wait for Mattel to make these bodies? For some of us, ordering bodies from other brands to like try to head swap can be very nerve-wracking, because if you're not really familiar with that brand and like the skin tones, I mean, you're spending real life money on these body parts. You might just be stuck with a body that you can't do anything with if you didn't really calculate the exact tone match. So it's good to have options, you know. So I highly suggest go over and check out Ethan's channel. You won't regret it. At the very least, just go and look at his beautiful dolls, because he's got a really amazing collection over there. Yeah, so just remember when you're looking at this sculpt, once he gets a name, then we'll actually be able to call him something other than fake Tate. He's got a built-in smile, he's got wide lips, a triangular nose shape with a wide base, a wide chin, and he's missing those dimples, okay? The next one that we're going to look at is my beauteous beauty here that was gifted to me by Mr. Galaxy, who knew that she was one of my grail dolls, and this is my beautiful Ione. Ione is originally the Alice in Wonderland Barbie. Oh my goodness. This doll is probably one of the most peculiar head sculpts that I've ever seen on a Barbie doll in person. So initially she was produced in 2007 on the Alice in Wonderland Barbie, this one right here, who is on a different body. And then the year after that, we got the Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf Barbie, and she had bangs and brunette hair, so slightly different than this one, but the same face sculpt. Other than those two, this sculpt has not been used on any Barbies to date, which I think is a shame. So she was a Silver Label doll. Silver Label Barbies are limited edition dolls produced for adult collectors with a moderate production run. They're usually not more than 25,000 units made. The most notable thing about the sculpt is absolutely the head size. Her head, I mean, when I tell you that she's basically got an Easter egg head, I'm not exaggerating, she really does. It's the longest, biggest head I've ever seen on a Barbie, honestly. It's rivaling like a Mycene doll's head or a Disney princess head from the Disney store line. Let me show you my Mbili sculpt next to her. Can you tell how much smaller this head is? I don't know, but you can feel the difference when you're like holding the doll's head. It just takes up so much space in your hand. Oh, it's a big difference. I'm telling you, you could fit 2 Barbie's heads in the scope of the size of this head, like the length. It's just really, really long. And she's got a full head of hair. But that is the first thing that I noticed about this sculpt, is just how big the head is, which might seem really bizarre. Maybe they were just trying to make her look very cartoony and have like big exaggerated features, so that might explain why they gave her such a big head. But I'm telling you, it's so unique, and actually it's one of my favorite things about this doll is her head is gigantic, because no matter where I display this doll, I can always get a good look at her face, and I have really bad eyesight, so for me it's like a magnified version of a typical Barbie doll's head, which I love about her. In comparison, I have the Simone sculpt over here. Her features are very tiny compared to Ione's. From a distance, I can barely make out her face. You know, I have to be very close up to the doll to actually see her. But with Ione, I never have that problem. Anywhere I put her in the house, like no matter what shelf she's on, I can get a very good look at her face. And like I tell you guys all the time, I'm a face collector. I love faces. The outfits and the fashions and all of that is great too, but like my focus when I'm looking at my dolls is always their face. I just want to see their pretty faces looking back at me. So for me, it's a really big deal that she's got such noticeable features. Yeah, so if you have a doll whose head is enormous and you cannot figure out why, then it could be an Alice head sculpt. Some notable features about her: her very small nose, despite having a huge head. Her nose is not too big, and you can see from the side here that she does have a noticeable forehead as well. There's her silhouette from the side. She does have plump lips, but you can see that the top lip is protruding farther away from her face than her bottom lip is, so she almost has like a little overbite. And in both versions that exist of the sculpt, they are side glancing faces. That's not part of the sculpt, of course, but it's just a quick way to identify them if you're trying to find the sculpt to collect. So it's hard to tell when you look at her in pictures that she has a massive head. It's like when you get her in person, it really stands out. But when you just look at pictures, you might not be able to really see that her head is a lot bigger than the average Barbie doll. So that's why I'm pointing out these other features to look for, like the side glancing eyes that would be painted onto the sculpt and the way that her lips are shaped. I mean, of course, her head is huge, so it makes sense, but she's got so much hair. I can style this doll's hair pretty much any way that I want. I usually don't style my doll's hair too much in different styles that require me to tie the hair. I might do like braids once in a while, or a simple ponytail that I don't plan to keep in that long. But the reason why I usually just style the doll's hair just loose is because I don't like for there to be dent in the hair and different texture differences in the hair from being in different hairstyles. So I tend not to mess with the doll's hair too much. And I don't know, is that like an Aspie thing? Like, I'm so weird about textures, but I don't know. I just don't like to do it. I can do different styles. Like, I'm just letting you know, if you're looking to buy this doll, you can do different styles with this doll's hair for sure. I just don't. Look how cute she is with this freaking gigantic mask on her face. I just wanted to try this mask on her because it looked humongous to me. And I was like, it would be perfect for a doll with a huge head. And she was like, I got a huge head, how about me? So I've been keeping it on her. It just makes her look so mysterious with her smoky eyes. Like, I think she has a very mysterious look. I freaking love her. I love Ione. Okay, enough gushing about Ione. I could go on and on about Ione all day, so we're going to move on. Okay, so here we have another doll that a lot of people in the comments have been asking me about, because you guys usually see him in the backgrounds when I'm making different videos. So this guy, his name is Guitar. I don't know if his sculpt is called Jacob or Taylor, because the actor who his face is sculpted to the likeness of is named Taylor Lautner. That actor played a character, Jacob Black, from the Twilight Saga, who this Ken actually originally started off as right here. So if you have the Jacob from Twilight series Ken, then you know who I'm talking about. So these two guys actually are the same sculpt and the same Ken doll. As far as I know, there are no other Kens that have this sculpt. So if you want to add the sculpt to your collection so far at the time of recording, you can only do that if you purchase a Jacob doll here. My Jacob, I think I bought him on Amazon. This is the Jacob that I bought from Amazon. I kept him the way that he was, except for his body has been swapped. I either used Wheelchair Ken or I used Cam from the Barbie Looks series with the long hair. One or the other, or maybe one of each. I don't really remember which bodies I use for these guys, but that's the skin tone that he matches pretty much. With Guitar here though, I found him at a thrift store. Isn't that crazy? I think I paid like, I don't know, maybe $4, $2, something like that for him. I decided, because I didn't want two of the same guys in my collection, I was going to massively customize him so that he could look like a completely different character. The original version here, I named him Pedro, if you're wondering, and then Guitar is the customized version of him. And what changes I made, I'll just go over real quick, because so many people kept asking me about him. So obviously I rerouted his hair. I think I used hair from the Barbie Looks model number, is she number 2? L? I think I used her hair on him. I gave him some enhancements to his eyebrows. I gave him a mole on his nose and facial hair, along with some piercings that are actually not real piercings. I used my puffy paint technique for his ear ring. I'm just gonna turn my flash on so you can see a little bit better, guys. I told you my lighting sucks. The earrings are not actual piercings that go through his ear. It's puffy paint that I basically shaped along his earlobe so that it looks like it's a little hoop. Puffy paint, if you don't know, is 3D paint, so you can kind of make fake piercings with it so that it's dimensional and has texture without actually poking holes in your doll. For the most part, I think that's all of the customizing that I did to him. He just looks like he's in between braided hairstyles. It was kind of the look I was going for with him. And I gave him a little tattoo on his arm. I think he was very inspired by my time in Washington State, where we were constantly running into Samoan people. And if you have an interest in Samoan culture or the people, the next best thing to going to Hawaii to see them and interact with them is to go to Washington State. They're all over the state. Pacific Islanders, all kinds of Asians really, but I mean the Samoans for sure are taking over that state, you know? They're such beautiful people, and I wanted to add a Samoan character to my collection of dolls. So that's how I ended up with Guitar here, looking how he's looking. And it might throw you off that he's got an afro, where you don't associate afro hair textures with Samoan people, but you'd be shocked. When I was in Washington, there were a lot of Samoans who were half black. Their hair textures varied between like coarse textures to smooth textures. The men had long hair, big poofy hair, braids, like all kinds of different hair textures. They were so diverse, and I didn't expect that. So I kind of wanted to reflect that diversity in the Samoan people by giving him this very curly hair texture that, like I said, looks like it's just in between braided styles. Y'all, I'm telling you, like I didn't really even see a whole lot of black folks when I was in Washington. I swear, like sometimes I'm thinking like the Samoans are kind of like the black people substitutes. They be listening to hip-hop music. They use all of our Ebonic slangs, like their style, the way they dress. They have like a lot of like hip-hop style clothes that they wear. They're down, okay? Don't sleep on the Samoans, all right? So anyways, I just wanted a little reminder of my time in Washington when I made him. And I love the way he turned out. I think he's very unique. But as far as the face sculpt is concerned, let's take a closer look and see what these sculpts have in common. To me, the first thing that stands out about the sculpt is going to be the nose. The shape of the nose. It's actually quite large compared to some of the other male sculpts that I've looked at before. And obviously, if you look at a picture of Taylor Lautner, I mean, it's supposed to look just like him. And I think they did a pretty good job of capturing his likeness with the sculpt. So all the basic things you see in Taylor's real face is what you're gonna see in this sculpt. everything is just big. Like he's got a big nose, big lips, big chin. He's just got a big features, but not in a bad way. It's just very distinct, you know? You can tell that it's him. It's kind of interesting. Wow, oh my goodness. I think Taylor Sculpt actually has a bigger, longer chin than even Tate. Didn't even realize that. Well, somebody beat you out, Tate. Yeah, king of the chins over here. You can see all the little detail lines in the nose with this sculpt. It's very, very distinct. That's the side profile. Look at his forehead. That like ridge in his forehead. It's so noticeable. But that's pretty much what you're going to be looking for with this sculpt. I also noticed that people tend to mix this face up with the basics Ken, which is this one here, because their noses look very similar. But as you can see on Taylor's face, the nose is so much bigger, like a blown up version of the other nose. And also you can see that the chin, not even a comparison, bruh. His head in general is much larger than the basics Ken head. So if you see people mixing these sculpts up, well, now you know the difference and what to look for. Like their whole face is different, but at a glance I can see why people, if they weren't looking at them side by side, why they might mix these guys up, just looking at one or two features at a time. Okay, we're gonna move on to another face. So next we have the Mari sculpt here, and my Mari, the only one I have in my collection, her name is Nano Sera. Whoever watched, what is it called, The Girl from Nowhere on Netflix? Like the main character, her name is Nano, and she is so weird, but I freaking love that show and I love her character, so that's why I named her after. If you're wondering, it's a Thai show. I love Thai TV. Anyway, this one, we first saw this doll introduced with the Generation Girl Dance Party Mari that came out in 2000, I think. And according to Barbiepedia, with the introduction of the Leah or Kayla face sculpt that came out in 2002 as the standard Asian face of the Barbie line, Mari would not be used again until 15 years later when Carlisle Nuera reintroduced the face in 2016 with the chiffon ball gown Barbie, which was a Barbie fan club exclusive doll. I did not realize this. Holy moly. And the chiffon ball gown Barbie, she is very beautiful. The one that had the black and white dress, so pretty. There were a lot of dolls that were produced with this mold. Most of them are signature dolls. I'm not gonna name every single one of them because there's so many, but I'll put up some pictures of the different ones that you might be able to find. This one here, she is actually the Lunar New Year Barbie from 2021. And she came with the red dress. I had to have her mostly because I loved the dress, and I did want to add a version of Mari to my collection. I had seen the chiffon ball gown one, but I was not about to spend that money on that doll at the time, so I just was like, whatever. She's just one of those ones that I might have to just miss unless the price comes down, you feel me? Carlisle is pretty good at doing like Asian faces, so you know, there's almost no Asian look that he does that disappoints me. It is what it is. I can't have all of them. So with this sculpt, it was always meant to be the Asian friend of Barbie, or one of them. So the sculpt was designed to have the basic bone structure of an East Asian face. It's very flat. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm saying, but flat is like the first word that comes into my mind when I see this doll's face. She's got almond-shaped eye sockets, a really tiny nose. Her lips are surprisingly a little plump, and she does have the high cheekbones, so that's something you're gonna see that most of these have in common. And I also think she's got a bit of a wider forehead. Is it just me? Like, that's, I don't know if her forehead is specifically wide. It's just that the way that her face angles down to her chin, because it gets like smaller and pointier as you get down to the bottom of her face, it just appears as if her forehead is wide. But compared to other dolls, I don't think her forehead is specifically wider than theirs, you know what I'm saying? It's a very mild sculpt where I don't think she has very strong features, but if you know what to look for, then you can easily identify this sculpt. Now, in my case with this doll, she is not on her original body. The original body had no articulation, and I swapped her onto a made to move, and she has some like tattoos that I put on her. This belly button ring is just a tiny little rhinestone stud. I just glued it on. And then the tattoo is actually supposed to be nail art tattoo that you can order from. I got mine from Amazon, and you can just order like packs of different nail art. I do think they look better on these lighter skin tones, because when I tried them out on my darker dolls, they're hard to see. They're not hard to apply, so that's why I like them. If you don't want to draw them on by hand, then it's a pretty good substitute. When I'm getting dolls where I know I don't have any others of that doll's face sculpt and I'm trying to like add a new one, I try to go for dolls that if I never ever got another one of that sculpt, I'm gonna be satisfied that I only have that one in my collection. So she's one of those for me. I chose her specifically because I think she absolutely looked like an Asian person. She also had long rooted hair, and unlike a lot of the other Asian looking dolls that I see, she doesn't have bangs. I feel like it's like the go-to default hairstyle for a lot of the Asian faces to have bangs and long hair. I do have some dolls like that, but I don't like to have dolls that are too redundant looking. You know, I do the same thing with my black female dolls that have afros. Like, I don't want so many afros in my collection, because how often do you run into somebody who's just rocking an afro all the time? I like for them to have different kinds of hair textures, even in the same skin tones or the same ethnicities that they're supposed to be representing. So that's why I wanted this version of her. As you can see in the pictures, there are other versions of this same sculpt that they use for Lunar New Year Barbie, but I didn't want to add the others because it just was going to be too redundant. When I switch them out of their clothes, which I always do, I want them to look very different from each other. So I didn't want a bunch of repeats of like the same face. And I do like the one with the short hair. I think she's really cute. For the price that these dolls go for, it just to me didn't make sense to keep adding a whole bunch of the same Asian light skin toned Mari over and over and over again, because to me they just look like the same girl in different outfits. That was what I was going for. I would love to add more Maris to my collection with different hair textures in this one and different skin tones than this one, like the one that Carlisle made with the chiffon ball gown. She's so pretty. It is what it is. I'm satisfied. If I never get another one, I'll be okay with this one. So of course I take such good care of her because she's the only one in my collection right now. Next we have Taya. I don't know if it's Taya or Taya, but I'm gonna call her Taya. I'm just gonna go with that pronunciation for now until I hear differently. It might be Taya, I don't know. Whatever the case is. But in my collection, I call her Spinelli. And yeah, Spinelli after Spinelli from Recess. Remember that character? She was so weird. She was my favorite. So I named her after her. She was used first on this doll, the Fashionistas 199, who came with the purple checkered dress. She's not the only doll that has this sculpt. We're seeing the sculpt more and more. So we've got the Barbie Deluxe Style 2 doll with the long hair and the prosthetic leg. Definitely she's on my list, but unfortunately she's got the pixel phase. Yeah. And then we've got the Style by Design 2. That doll, oh my goodness, she's probably like the grail of these face sculpts that exist right now for me. Designed by Carla Nuera, of course, to be a Filipina queen. She's amazing. And then we've got the Cutie Reveal Koala from Wave 6 and the 2024 Women in Film, the You Can Be Anything series doll. So drop it in the comments if you can think of any other dolls that have this sculpt. In fact, do the same for all of these sculpts when you guys are watching these sculpt study videos and there's dolls that I haven't mentioned, because obviously like my first sculpt study I did 3 years ago. Since then, so many other dolls have come out that have those sculpts. So if people are looking for them, then it's always great to see in the comments people listing different dolls that have those sculpts so that they can go and research them and try to find them if they're trying to add them to their collections. But in my collection, she is the only one that I own. Absolutely, I would get the Style by Design number 2 doll. She's epic, but I'm not trying to spend that kind of money on her. So she might end up on my list of grails that I miss out on, you know? She's so freaking gorgeous, oh my gosh. Everything about that doll is just perfect, right? And I don't see many dolls that I want to keep in the condition that I get them in, but I would be really tempted to keep her the way that she is for a while because she's just so pretty. Like, I would probably take her out of the box to display, but I would probably leave her in those clothes for a while. The key features to look for with this doll is that obviously she's got closed, smiling lips. The smile is embedded into the actual sculpt, so it does turn up here in the corners. Okay, we're gonna turn on the flash so we get a little bit better look. She has a wider nose at the base, large sockets where her eyes go. She does have a squared off chin, but her jawline is pretty narrow. So these are the things you want to be looking for with the sculpt. I think the first thing that really stands out with the sculpt when you look at multiple versions of her is probably the shape of her nose. Also, the lips. She's got very full lips. They're wide. They take up like most of the space on the bottom half of her face. So that's another thing you want to be looking for with the Taya sculpt. The last thing I want to show you guys is just a bonus doll that I wasn't really going to add to this video, but because Spinelli is in this video, I'm going to add her too, because this doll came out in the same wave with her for the Fashionistas line. So it's this sculpt here. This one definitely does have a pixely face, but it's not severe. And because her lips almost look sparkly, like you can kind of get away with it with this one. Let me see how she looks without flash. Yeah, it's almost unnoticeable without the flash on, but she has like shimmery makeup on her cheeks. And her eyes are kind of shiny. You just can't really tell without the flash. So it's not severe. I can handle this level of pixelation. Oh no. But anyway, this sculpt has no name so far. We're just going to give her the code of HJR99. I call her Decoy. This face was first used on this doll, which is the Fashionistas 200. Mine I have on a curvy body. You can see from the difference in the coloring of the head and the body that it's not 100% match. I'm not even gonna say it's close. It's close enough for my satisfaction. Without a bright light shining on her, you really can't tell with your naked eye that her head is not the exact same color as her body. Yeah, so we haven't seen this face used on any other doll so far, but I do notice that she has a really native, like First Nations, indigenous people kind of a face bone structure. So is that on purpose? Is she supposed to be representing native folks? I don't know. But if you're looking for dolls that you want to turn into your version of Pocahontas, well then this might be a good sculpt for you to add to your collection to do that. I also think that this sculpt would make a good Arab person or like a Middle Easterner. Some of the features you want to be looking for with her are the wide lips, and they do turn up at the corners. That's actually in her vinyl. The smile basically is baked into her face, and she's got very strong cheekbones, really noticeable, with a small kind of downturned nose, a jawline that's kind of squared off with a wide chin. So if you want to look at Spinelli here next to her, because these two are new sculpts that came out at the same time with the same wave of dolls, you see that the jawline itself is similar, but Spinelli has a smaller chin, like it's not as wide as Decoy's. Let me know in the comments if you have any of these dolls or want to add any of these to your collection and what versions you want to add. So what did you think about the faces that we took a look at today? I'm very interested to see another of the sculpt that was used on my doll Decoy, just to see other renditions of her, maybe with a different hair color, I would love to see her with like big curly hair. That would be dope. What do you guys think? Are there any from this line that surprised you when we looked at their features up close? I was shocked at how much my Douglas looks like a Tate sculpt. And I was actually excited thinking maybe he was a Tate sculpt, because I was like, what? That'd be so dope, because we don't have any Tates that are in that skin tone. Unfortunately, such was not the case. Nonetheless, that's why we do these sculpt studies, so that we can learn more about the different features of the doll's faces, because a lot of them do look very similar and they can get mixed up. For example, the Mbili sculpt that we just kind of umbrella all of the dolls into that have that sculpt, there's actually two versions of that one. So we have the Mbili sculpt, and then we have a Grace face that was produced much later, and they don't have the same year stamped on their necks, even though it's the same face. Well, the reason is because the Mbili version is a lot smaller, and all of the details in the sculpt are more pronounced. Like the eye sockets are deeper, everything is a little bit more sharp. And the Grace version of that head sculpt is the more like loose version, if you want to call it that. The eye socket is a little bit flatter, and the head itself is bigger. They are the same face, it's the same features on the face, but it's just like a more enhanced, like a sharper version of the face, if that makes sense. And Beely is the original and Grace is the newer version of her, like the playline version basically. You know, if you didn't realize that, looking at the two, you might get confused because you're like, why does this one have 1 year stamped on the head and then this one has a different year stamped on the head and people are calling them both Beely? Well, that's why. There's two versions of it. That's what we're doing these nerdy sculpt studies for, just to learn more about how to tell these faces apart from each other, discover what they might have in common with each other. If you have a request for a specific doll that you would like me to do a sculpt study on, even if I don't have that specific doll, if I have that sculpt in my collection, I'll be sure to add that one to another sculpt study episode in the future. So shout out to you guys who are leaving comments. Shout out to my boy Liam who came over and left me a nice comment over here. I actually went to middle school with him and he was one of my good friends. Yeah, we had all of our classes together and he was my homeboy. Thank you for stopping by. I really love when people from like my real life, people who actually know me, come and hang out on my channel. We'll talk again in the next one and I'll see you when I see you. I'm Gypsy and you are not, but it's all good because the both of us can go have a dolly day.